Welcome back. We've got a whole lot more territory to cover, so we're going to dive right into the next question on sex. This question is a little bit more specific, maybe easier for you guys to answer. Is oral sex within marriage okay?
I think the marriage bed is undefiled before God. So I think that as long as we both, the husband and the wife, are kind of enjoying one another together in a way that they both have agreed on, I think in the marriage relationship, that would be a way for both people to love one another.
Alan, you hit it with the Bible is real specific on when is sex appropriate within the marriage and when it's not appropriate, but it doesn't give us a lot of clear, okay, within a marriage context, what can or can't you do? But there's there's a good verse, I believe it's in 1 Corinthians, it may even be in chapter 7 if I'm not mistaken. Might have to fact check that one. But it talks about the importance of the mutual consent there, of what happens within the marriage bed, within a husband and a wife. And this is something that any type of sex between a husband and wife, it's got to be agreed upon, and you got to be talking about it, whether it's oral sex or any other type of sex. You got to be talking about this so that both partners are in agreement, that there's this mutual consent there. Both partners know what's happening. We know what to expect. There's nothing being caught by surprise here, because then you can definitely venture off into some dangerous things where now it's all right. It's not consensual here, and now it may just be a beyond a not a right or wrong thing here. Now you may have crossed the line of we can even use a word. Was this abuse here now? Because we hadn't even talked about this part.
Yeah.
Communication is key here, Jeff, with these type of things.
Okay, very good. As a general rule of thumb, if you're asking the inside marriage questions, does it honor God? Does it honor your spouse? Is it mutually agreed upon? If those three answers are yes, then for the most part, go for it. Notice I just qualified that statement, because here's the next question. What about pornography inside of marriage? Is that okay?
No.
Pornography is adultery.
Yeah.
You have introduced another party into the marriage relationship. They may be pictorial or video, but that is another person, and now you have entered into adulterous relationship. Whatever the mind is Matthew 5. So I think that when you, in the marriage relationship, even in the marriage relationship, introducing pornography into that relationship introduces a third or multiple party.
Right.
Which now you have. I think you've entered into adultery.
And you almost want to ask, why would you introduce that into your marriage with the thought of being able to contain that within the bedroom part? But this is really dangerous. And not, is it sin? Yeah, this is sin, but it's also really, really dangerous. Why would you want to introduce this danger into your marriage?
Well,
right?
all sin is really dangerous.
Yes, and that's true. It's all very dangerous. Don't introduce this into your marriage. No, it's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
Okay. Next question didn't give us enough context, so I'm going to pose this question two different ways. Is only vaginal sex allowed? Is what the question asked, but by this question, you may be asking, is only vaginal sex allowed in marriage? If that's the way you're asking the question, how would you answer that, guys?
I think no. I think we've answered that.
Yes.
Oral,
Okay. We've already answered that question. If this was, and I think maybe the person who asked this question was not married, and they're trying to skirt around the rules of God here a little bit and to say, is only vaginal sex prohibited outside of marriage? How would you answer that question, guys?
No.
Right.
Sex in all of its confines. Because I think an interesting. I don't want to go down a rabbit trail, but an interesting thing that we as human beings try to do, from Adam and Eve, they've done it all the way through. We do it today. Is we try to reduce the holiness of God to a standard that we can kind of muster, right? So we go, yeah, but does it really mean that, when in reality, the holiness of God's expectation for us is it is so grand in His holiness that the question should never be, well, can I do this? God expects us to be holy. And so outside of the marriage relationship, there's no framework around which sex is a holy activity that a person should be engaged in. We've to try to find that place is an attempt to reduce the holiness of God to a quote humanly acceptable standard,
Right.
and we've missed, we've undermined God's character by doing so.
Anybody else want to add to this? I will add, anytime you ask the question, but does the commandment prohibit this or does the commandment allow that? You're trying to skirt around what the scriptures are teaching, and it may be that you're looking for a loophole. It may be that you just don't understand. Anytime you say, I know what it says, but what about this? You're on really thin ice. It doesn't matter what you're asking about. So if you're saying, I know what it says about sex, but is it only vaginal sex that I can't have outside of marriage? You're already asking the wrong question.
Right.
That's the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, how do I preserve my purity in a way that honors God and honors my spouse when I do get married? That's the right question to ask. And I think that gives you don't even need to ask us that question. You probably already know the answer to that one.
Well, Paul gives us a pretty good description of this in Timothy. He's talking about, the older men with the younger women and the older women with the younger women, and then he says that we should treat one another as brother and sister. And it's in the context of intimate relationships and relations with one another. If you wouldn't do it with your sister, you probably shouldn't do it with, if you wouldn't do it with your brother, you probably shouldn't do it, right? I mean, so Paul gives Timothy this sort of easy to interpret parameter.
Hey, that's a little bit of what we're trying to cover with you today. There are more videos coming. Check them out on our YouTube channel.